Okay, anytime you'd like. Okay.
Good evening. 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 I have been experiencing blurry vision, fatigue, restlessness, irritability, and frequent urination. I am extremely thirsty, and at first I thought it was physical signs of stress. I work full-time, Monday through Friday. I attend classes 3 nights per week, and I play chauffeur to my children on the weekends. I decided to make an appointment with my physician. According to the ADA, the American Diabetes Association, as of January 26, 2011, 25.8 million people currently suffer with diabetes in the United States. The ADA fact sheet reports that 1.9 million suffer with 7 million people suffer with undiagnosed diabetes. Last week, I handed out a questionnaire asking if you knew the risk factors of diabetes. I am pleased to say many of you were aware of the risk factors. However, not everyone has this knowledge. Extensive research I have been a part of extensive research at Thomas Jefferson University for over 10 years, conducting clinical trials for diabetes. For FDA-approved medications, Food and Drug Administration, as well as new combinations of medications currently on the market for the treatment of type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Today, I would like to discuss with you the nature and complications of type 1, type 2, and gestational diabetes and its treatment options. Diabetes is a condition in which the body is not able to regulate the levels of glucose in the bloodstream. Type 1 diabetes, what I'd like to discuss with you first, is type 1 diabetes and its treatment options. Type 1 diabetes is when the body does not produce insulin. Type 1 diabetes used to be diagnosed as juvenile diabetes because it's commonly seen in children. But today, type 1 diabetes is diagnosed as anyone who does not produce insulin. The CDC reports, Center for Disease Control reports that type 1 diabetes is commonly diagnosed in children Caucasian, non-Hispanic, ages 0 through 9 years old. Although the cause of type 1 diabetes has not been pinpointed, researchers and scientists discovered that it is a genetic disorder passing down from mother to child. It is when the insulin-producing cells, which are called the islet cells, which flow through the pancreas, the pancreas sees the islet cells as bacteria and destroys them as part of its immune system. Uncontrolled risk factors of type 1 diabetes: heart disease, neuropathy, which is tingling in the fingers and toes, blindness, and amputation. Now that we have discussed type 1 diabetes, I would now like to discuss with you risk factors and complications of type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is when the body does not produce enough insulin. Excuse me. Unlike type 1, it can be controlled through insulin injections, diet and exercise, and oral medications. The CDC reports that type 2 diabetes is the most commonly diagnosed of the 3 types of diabetes. The most common risk factors of type 2 diabetes are heart disease, high blood pressure, and for men, erectile dysfunction. Type 2 diabetes is commonly found in African American, American Hispanic, and Native Americans living in the U.S. Another type of diabetes, which is the 3rd type, is called gestational diabetes, and this is found in pregnant mothers between 28 weeks of pregnancy. How this is diagnosed is a blood sample is drawn, and the mother will drink a glucose solution called dextrose. It's an oral glucose tolerance test. Sent to the lab, and depending on the lab, each lab varies, but if the levels come back above 155, usually the mother is diagnosed with gestational diabetes, and she is then treated by her physician either through insulin injections or through diet and exercise. Gestational diabetes is when there is a surplus of glucose flowing through the placenta into the bloodstream of the baby. This does not mean that the baby will develop type 1 diabetes. However, it is a high risk factor that the baby as an adult will develop type 2 diabetes. Some common risk factors of gestational diabetes are if the mother previously delivered a baby weighing over 9 pounds. In the U.S., the cost of diabetes in 2007 rose to over $116 billion for treatment, care, and supplies. The ADA reports that 1.9 million people, 1.9 million new cases in the 2010 were reported for diabetes alone, and 7 million undiagnosed cases of diabetes currently in